Hinduism is a broad term, kind of an umbrella term for the many religious traditions and practices of India, many of whom have something in common with one another, but it's very hard to pin down an essence of Hinduism as this or that. As everybody knows, there's no single founder to Hinduism, there's no single scripture, but it's a vast web, a matrix of interconnected traditions, some of which are local and popular in the villages, lived from the ground up specifically. Others have long textual and oral traditions rooted in the Sanskrit tradition, the Vedas, and so on like that. And I think depending on where one comes down, the study of Hinduism can be a kind of anthropology or sociological study, can be a study of practices, or it can be, as I tend as a theologian, to be very much a study of text and commentary, scholasticism, as one would study a great philosophical or theological tradition and spend one time reading the books and so on. So it's a vast range of things. Some people define Hinduism negatively in terms of Hinduism is not the same as Buddhism, is not the same as Christianity or Islam, and it's those traditions that seem to have something in common internally with their tolerance and acceptance of one another that give it its character. Now, why did I become interested in Hinduism? When I was a young Jesuit in Kathmandu, doing my teaching there for several years, all the boys I taught were Hindu and Buddhist, and I found instinctively that the Hinduism was more of interest to me. And again, it's a local form of Hinduism, Hinduism of the Kathmandu Valley, of the Himalayas, but the practices, the devotionalism to particular deities like Krishna or Rama, the respect for liturgy, for ritual, the sense of the completeness of life. I always found that when we talk about being Catholic, we don't just mean agreeing with the teachings of the church, we mean it's a way of life. You're a practicing Catholic. And that Hinduism celebrates being a practicing Hindu, and that if one goes to a large Hindu temple, it's multimedia, it appeals to the different senses, sound and sight, smells and tastes. Likewise, in many a great Catholic church or cathedral or basilica, there's this multimedia sense of a complete religion. So I certainly, despite the differences one could point to, that there was a great kind of affinity between Hindu religious culture and Catholic religious culture that creates the opportunity for a learning and dialogue without conflating the two and without saying that they're the same thing. Well, certainly if you read the textual tradition and if you go to Hindu temples and observe what's going on, people do pray to different deities. The textual tradition are hymns to different gods, both ancient gods of the Vedic period and more popular gods of more recent times, some of whom are kind of all India and some of them are very local, gods like Rama or Krishna, or local goddesses and gods that are particular valleys, particular trees, and so on. So some sense you can get is that there is a multiplicity of deities to whom people pray. But almost all the Hindus I know also claim that there is a unity to this plurality, and that it's done either by, as some Hindus will say today, all of these deities represent the one, and that they're all kind of multiple faces of the one. Or in monotheistic forms of Hinduism, the multiplicity of deities have a supreme god. So Krishna or Rama or Shiva or one of the great goddesses is the ruler, the supreme deity, and all the other deities are more what we in Catholic tradition would think of as something like the saints or angels, a plurality of beings beyond this world, but not all equal, but rather in a hierarchy. So I think the main thing would be that the polytheism in practice and the many names of the deities doesn't indicate a chaos or a total confusion, but rather a system of kindred relationships among different divine forms. And then depending on how the Hindu is theologically inclined, either is all representative of the one or all within a larger family with the supreme deity on top.
Mm-hmm. So is this one the supreme reality? Is this the same as the God within Christianity, the Father of Jesus?
Well, I think when we use terms like supreme reality or ultimate reality, from both a Hindu and a Christian perspective, and also I think in terms of other traditions too, there's only one supreme reality. If there were multiple, it wouldn't be supreme. And therefore, I think there are good grounds in Christian perspective to say there is one God of the universe, there is one God of the world, one creator, one redeemer. And likewise, Hindus who have these superlative understandings of God's perfections, God's powers, God's sovereign will over the world, will say, well, this God is the God of the universe. So I think from both perspectives there's reason to say it's not that my God only goes this far and stops and your God comes that far and stops, but rather one God overall. And I think Hindus might be more inclined to be willing to say, and you call it by this name and we call it by this name, let us live in peace. Mm-hmm. But both would agree that if there is an ultimate unity to the universe, it's one unity, not your opinion, my opinion, but there's a reality that grounds all of us.
Mm-hmm.